Homeless and Hungry But the Tuition is Paid, a single case study exploring the food and housing insecurity crisis among undergraduate students by Profit-Rheinwald. Nearly half of undergraduate collegians in the United States report unmet food and housing needs. Food and housing insecurities detrimentally impact a college student's psychological and academic performance. Rotten did a recent study within the Wisconsin higher education public system, a comparable size and student demographic to the State University of New York or SUNY system. In short, nearly half of the students within the Wisconsin system reported food insecurity, and a quarter of them reported inconsistent places to sleep each night or housing insecurities. The USDA describes food insecurities as the lack of access to nutritional food sources, the inability to acquire food, or extreme physiological feelings of hunger. The Department of Housing and Urban Development defines housing insecurities as the inability to afford rent, moving frequently, or not having a stable address. Students at greater risk of experiencing these insecurities identify as underserved or underrepresented. Students who identify as African American or Black, Latino, Latina, or Hispanic, LGBTQ, a person with disabilities, a veteran, a former foster youth, financially independent from their parents, or as a single parent are at greater risk for impact. The financial commitment to obtain an undergraduate degree has yet to be fully understood or equitably funded. Lawmakers expect students to make informed financial decisions based on the institution's net price calculator. However, the NPC system isn't always accurate or reliable and leaves students making financial decisions without being fully informed. Food insecurities harm several dimensions of a student's health and well-being. These insecurities directly impact mental health, relationships, nutrition, and sleep. For students facing housing insecurities, their academic success is often the most impacted. Factors such as poor study habits, a lack of social success are all detriments of this impact. From 2007 to 2019, the number of food pantries on a college campus increased by over 700%. Most campus-based food pantries also provide additional support services, information on local food programs such as SNAP benefits, housing resources, transportation assistance, and childcare. Despite the growth and popularity of food pantries opening on higher education campuses across the country, many campuses still don't utilize this type of resource for their students. This single case study aimed to understand better how food and housing insecurities impact undergraduate students' academic and social integration at a state university in Western New York. Tinto's student integration theory argues that a student's personal attributes and institutional goals and commitments impact a student's academic and social success, resulting in overall persistence. Tinto's theory purposely informs the questions driving this research. As stated previously, food and housing plays a critical role in the success of undergraduate students. When these basic needs are restricted or removed from a student, their chance of success in academic or social settings diminish exponentially. This information is a driving factor that influences the research question of the study. Question 1 inquires about the student's overall experience, while questions 2 and 3 explore two categories of Tinto's theory of academic and social integration. All interview questions and artifacts were organized and influenced by Tinto's integration framework. The purpose of conducting interviews through a single case study approach was to understand what experiences undergraduate students at SUNY Brockport have with food and housing insecurities, and if those experiences impact their academic and social integration. The research questions I used to guide my study are as follows. What experiences do undergraduate students at SUNY Brockport have with food and housing insecurities? What are the undergraduate perspectives at SUNY Brockport on how food and housing insecurities impact their academic integration? And what are the undergraduate perspectives at SUNY Brockport on how food and housing insecurities impact their social integration? Methodology. Using a single holistic instrumental case study, I selected 5 undergraduate students who were enrolled at the institution during the 22-23 academic year for my participants. The site was SUNY Brockport, a university in the State University of New York system. For data collection, using criterion selection, 5 students were selected from an initial survey that was sent out to the student body, asking specific questions to students' experience with food and housing insecurities. I then conducted semi-structured interviews, had participants record food and housing logs, and I collected student event flyers advertising free food. For data analysis, I used Creswell and Post's data analysis spiral. This helped me develop 15 codes to 5 categories to 11 thematic statements. Limitations. Limitations that might threaten the validity of the study. First, a limitation is that students must self-identify as food and housing insecure. Some students may wish not to admit their status, leading to a smaller pool of students for criterion selection. It is also important to note that with a sample size of 5, a case study leaves a significant gap for generalizing the wider population and could leave a skew in the results due to reporting data that does not pertain to most of the students. Next, the fact that the students are transient creates an urgency to complete the study while students still are enrolled. This also leads to time playing a crucial role in limitations. Finally, fidelity, a role that as a researcher, I must trust that all information submitted, the artifacts, etc., and interviews are given faithfully. Delimitations. Consequently, there are delimitations along with limitations of the study. The first delimitation is the site selection. I've selected SUNY Brockport due to the accessibility of the student population. This delimitation could potentially be ethical and validity issues, as I am in a position of power over these students. Next is my personal bias and my history with the subject matter. This bias could jeopardize the validity and reliability of my research. To counter the delimitations, I will remain transparent with the participants, letting them know that all information is strictly confidential and will not impact their status on campus. I will also use data analysis methods to ensure my personal bias is kept out of the research. I have developed 5 thematic categories to develop thematic statements drawn from the second coding cycle that aligned with Tinto's student integration theory. I developed 11 statements and supported them with direct quotes from participants. Under each thematic statement, I connect the theme to the framework. To note, pre-entry attributes category does not directly align with my research questions. However, it does align with Tinto's framework. Looking at pre-entry attributes, participants coming from single-parent homes are common for those who currently struggle with food and housing insecurities. Student participants coming from homes with limited access to food is common for those who experience with food and housing insecurities. Academic integration. Some academic programs recognize the students' need for food and provide small food pantries within their departments to meet the students' need and be able to study. Students often find it hard to concentrate in class or study when they're missing meals or locating housing. And students had to make a choice between obtaining food or attending class. Insecurities. Participants found it hard to access food, even if they had a campus mealtime. Participants rarely ate food that would be classified as high or nutritional in value. Housing insecurities. Participants often found themselves looking for a place to sleep despite their residential status. Social integration. Participants often attended campus events that offer free food. Food and housing insecurities do not prevent students from joining clubs and organizations. Students do not want a handout from their peers and avoid doing social activities that require them to pay for food. These findings are congruent with the information found in the literature, particularly from main contributors such as Broughton, Goldrick Rabb, Daughtry, McCarthy, Camillo and Elliott, and Lewing et al. Via the participants' perspective, this study explained that food and housing insecurities directly relate to the academic and social integration of undergraduate students at SUNY Brockport. Participants shared their experience with these insecurities and were candid in sharing how their insecurities negatively and positively impacted their academic and social integration. The study revealed that there's a significant work to be done at SUNY Brockport to help mitigate the barriers that food and housing insecurities create for academic and social integration. The participants shared many times their concerns regarding the lack of access to dining services on campus and their desire for the central food pantry. Additionally, the participants almost unanimously noted that despite their food and housing insecurities, the campus is doing a superb job at keeping them socially integrated, as many of the events on campus offer free food, which helps to temporarily eliminate their hunger. To conclude my findings, SUNY Brockport must develop a plan to successfully support students with food and housing insecurities to ensure they are academically and socially integrated to better their likelihood of degree completion. This study led to a better understanding of the implications that food and housing insecurities have on the academic and social integration of undergraduate students at SUNY Brockport. I have recommendations for 2 key decision makers, the administration and the students. These recommendations are specifically for administrators and students at SUNY Brockport. However, they could be applied to any other higher education institution. Recommendations include opening a food pantry on campus, creating an emergency fund for students who need assistance with basic needs, developing an office to assist with student social service supports, encouraging students to be more open with their needs, and creating a normalization for help-seeking behavior. Implications are noted for each of these stakeholders. I will disseminate my research through a variety of in-person and virtual presentations to ensure all target audiences are reached. These presentations will provide background on existing literature, outline my study's methodology and data collection process, and share key findings. I plan to offer presentations to campus administrators, student groups, the faculty and staff union, and open student forums. These presentations will include visual summaries of literature, qualitative results, and actionable recommendations. By making the research accessible through tailored presentations for diverse stakeholders, I aim to effectively distribute insights to compel awareness and spark collaboration toward impactful solutions. My multifaceted disseminator strategy will enable various groups to engage with scholarly discourse and apply findings to enact positive change at both the institutional and individual levels.